Good afternoon, and welcome to this evening's instructional policy meeting of the board on October 14th at 4:30 p.m. We don't have to approve any minutes, and so we're going to move right along with the meeting, starting with Dr. Caver. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so today we're going to have one presentation regarding our English as a Second Language programming here in Akron Public Schools. But before I do that, I just want to remind the committee that on our agenda we have the minutes from our September 3rd meeting, if you want to go back and look at those. For topic 2, discussion, I want to make sure that I mention there are a couple items that you're going to see on the upcoming board agenda directly related to instructional policy. The first is business affairs item 27.4 with the Hatch agreement. This is something we've had for the past 3 years already with our ELP program, and this is the third and final year of utilizing that service. We also have an item, there are 2 items on there, I believe, that have to do with special education students that are court placed when we have to pay for their services where they are placed. So those items are on there. And then lastly, some of you may have remembered from last year, the 8th grade Changemaker Challenge. So there's an item on there to continue that initiative. So you will find those for the board's consideration on Monday. And now for today's topic, again, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Dr. Loy Dang Nguyen, and she will be presenting with Katie Yinger. Dr. Nguyen is our supervisor for ESL and foreign languages. Dr. Nguyen.
Good evening. So I'm very glad to be here. I'm Loy Dang Nguyen, and I'm the K-12 ESL and World Languages Supervisor. And to my left, I have Mrs. Katie Yinger, who is the Refugee Program Manager. Our mission is to ensure that all of our scholars are college, career, and life ready by providing innovative educational experience. We believe in the ESL program that we want to make sure that our graduates are architects of their future, where they get to decide if they want to go to college, get a job, or enroll into the military in this ever-changing world. At the center of our coherence framework, you will find the teacher, the child, and the content. ESL goes on top of the 4 cornerstones. We are in all 4 cornerstones as a program, and we believe that our role is to ensure that our kids who are not who are EL students will be able to access grade-level curriculum. And if we recruit, retain, and develop staff and deliver quality instruction, provide engaging experiences, and welcoming environments grounded in equity, then the community of Akron will thrive and our students will be successful.
As we have here, the 4 cornerstones, Dr. Nguyen mentioned that ESL it covers all 4 of those. The culture of safety and belonging, we want our students to feel safe and like they are participants in the schools as much as any other student. We want them to have access to academic achievement. We want their families to be engaged and to feel like they have a voice in the schools. And we want our ESL staff to be contributing to the excellence of their overall experience. So our hope today is that you all will have a better understanding of the ESL program, English as a Second Language, and we want you to have a better understanding of how we are implementing the program across the district. We do have a few terms, as so many areas of academia have, all these acronyms. So we've got them here on the screen. I'm not going to read them all. But for you all to know as you're looking through, this is what these all mean. We have a nice little glossary here for you. So I want to take you through a scenario. So if you'll follow along with me, I'm going to walk you through a thought story. So take a moment, close your eyes, And imagine home. Think about things you love, the rooms you spend time in, areas in your neighborhood that you walk by and know, the people you interact with in this place. What are the things that are coming to mind? I just want you to dwell on that for a moment. Now, imagine that tensions are rising in your community. You've seen news reports and even witnessed acts of violence. You yourself have been a victim of verbal abuse or blatant discrimination. You're beginning to see how this danger is seeping into your everyday life, and it's no longer safe for you or your kids to leave the house. The only thing that you can do is flee on foot, leaving in the night so no one knows that you're leaving. Think about what 5 things would you take with you that you will be carrying with you as you flee. Now you're leaving quickly, only carrying what you can and what is absolutely necessary. You don't know exactly where you're going, but you know you have to leave. And you're not traveling alone. You're taking your children with you, your 2 elderly parents, and a 2-year-old son. So keep in mind that's going to make things a little bit slower and harder. You're constantly fearful that those that are after you will hear the 2-year-old crying, or that your parents won't be able to keep up with the pace that you have to keep. You all begin to realize that you need to lighten your load so that you can help the more vulnerable with you. So you have to make hard choices and choose 2 things of those 5 to leave behind. Now, in the process of escaping, your pursuers are coming closer to you. You are being actively chased. You have to make a hard choice. Do you get captured altogether? Do you leave someone behind? How do you overcome these difficult realities? Now you've landed in Vietnam, your new country of residence. You're trying to figure out how to exist in this place. How do you set up a bank account? How do you get medical care, navigate the city, get your kid in school? You don't have a driver's license. You receive mail in a language you can't read. You can't go to your neighbors and ask them for help because they don't speak your language. You know that you have a local resettlement agency behind you for the first 90 days, but after that, their assistance is limited. You also constantly have in the back of your mind the knowledge that you have to pay back the cost of your flight to get here and that of your children's flights and your parents' flights. So you're looking for as much work as you can get, though work options are limited because you don't speak the language and you don't have a car yet and you don't have a license yet. So what's going through your mind? What challenges are you imagining that you are going to deal with as you're overcoming these things? And you're beginning to feel pressure from all sides. The school is telling you your kids need to be there or you'll be facing legal trouble. But you need to work, and you don't have a car, and the school isn't close. You don't have any community. You don't have your safety net of people to help you. Everything keeps piling on. How does this make you feel? Now pretend for a moment that you are the child that has been placed into the school. It's your first day. You don't know any Vietnamese. Welcome to school.
So I'm going to do a simulation. All right. I'm going to do a simulation in Vietnamese so that you can feel what it's like to receive instruction in a language that you do not speak. As you listen to this lesson, I want you to pay attention to your thinking process. What strategies do you use to try to understand the lesson? So when I count to 3, you'll be in Vietnam. 1, 2, 3. Xin chào các em. Ngày hôm nay cô sẽ dạy cho các em một bài học. Cô sẽ phát giấy cho các em. Em lấy một tờ xuống rồi em phát xuống nha. Mình sẽ đọc một câu chuyện ngày hôm nay về con mèo và con chuột. Dr. Caver, con mèo là con gì? Nói chuyện với Diana Autry đi. Con mèo và con chuột. Em biết con đó là con gì không? Mình sẽ coi cuốn giấy này nha. Mình sẽ đọc cái này. Đọc theo cô nha. Con mèo. Đọc theo cô. Con mèo. Con mèo. Con mèo. Con mèo. Con mèo. Hay. Con mèo trèo lên. Con mèo trèo lên. Mọi người sẽ đọc. Con mèo. Con mèo trèo lên. Cai cao.
Cai cao.
Con mèo.
Con mèo.
Trèo lên.
Trèo lên.
Cai cao.
Cai cao.
And I'm going to stop right there. Imagine that for 6 hours of a day. However, our teachers have to educate the students, and the teachers don't speak Vietnamese. So we actually offer strategies for our teachers, which is called PSYOP. I'm going to do the same lesson, but before I do, I want you to think about what was going through your head. What would you need to help you understand this lesson, which you were able to read very well. You repeated after me very well. But what do you need to help you comprehend this lesson? Understanding what I'm saying. What else? Google Translate. Mm-hmm. But we don't provide that to our students. What else would they need?
Context clues.
Context clues. All right. So I'm going to do the same lesson again. Pictures. Patience. Pictures. Yes. All right. I'm going to do the same lesson, okay? This time with PSYOP, which is the research-based strategy that we do when we teach our teachers on how to work with kids. All right. Let me get my second piece of resource out. Ngày hôm nay mình sẽ học về con mèo và con chuột. Cô sẽ lấy một miếng giấy. Cô sẽ nhờ em đưa xuống cho các bạn nha. Mình sẽ nhìn cái hình này trước. Cô muốn cho các em sẽ đọc con mèo.
Con mèo.
Con mèo. Meow. Con mèo. Con chuột. Con chuột.
Con chuột.
Cây.
Cai.
Nhà.
Nhà.
Đi chợ.
Đi chợ.
Giờ cô sẽ đọc lại cái câu chuyện này. Con mèo.
Con mèo.
Con mèo là con gì? Con mèo. Con mèo trèo. Trèo lên cây cao. And I'm going to stop right there. What was the first sentence about?
The cat climbing the tree.
Everybody here speaks fluent Vietnamese. Wonderful. You just read the story in Vietnamese, and you are able to understand. Our EL students throughout the day with proper scaffolding support will be able to access grade level content. But that goes into professional development that we prepare for our teachers, and we develop a lot of resources for them that I'm going to share with you today. So I'm not going to go through the whole lesson. We actually did this with our ambassadors at Bukto a couple weeks ago, and they loved it, just to give them an idea of what it feels to be a refugee student.
How do we evaluate the implementation of this? I know we provide training, but how are we doing touch points as far as with the students to, you know, how teachers can get in service, but the execution is another thing, that they're
Yes.
consistently executing with the fidelity in which you just gave us this,
Yes.
a lesson?
So when we talk about assessment, we always tell teachers, make sure you are assessing the child on content and not on English. So some of the accommodations that we recommend for teachers to do for a multiple choice test, instead of giving them 4 choices, give them 2 choices. So right there, it narrows it down a little bit for them. We get audited every year based on our data. So our EL students do take the OALPA, which is the Ohio English Language Proficiency Assessment, which is an OST at grade level. So I'm going to share you some of the highlights in a little bit.
And just for clarification, so in that OLEP, is that what you said?
OALPA.
OLPA, that's in their language? Or
In English, at
It's in-
grade level.
It's in English at grade level, but it's used in the PSYOP tool strategies, or what? No.
So the teachers use PSYOP for instruction, but the students need to show that they are growing and proficient in English every spring. And they are tested on 4 domains, which is speaking, writing, reading, and listening in English. So that's how we are measured on our report card to see if students are acquiring English. And it gives us a measurement of where we need to continue our work in and what support, additional support is needed. The PD itself is not going to be a match. There's no silver bullet, right? But we continue to go out and support as needed and give them the resources. Yes.
You just gave 4 different things. You said speaking, writing, listening, and what was the fourth
Reading.
one? Reading, okay.
Yes. annually. Yes, within the reading.
So it's not fluency, it's comprehension. Because when they do the reading, it may be like, if it's informational text, they have to make, do you see what I'm saying, Summer? So that's why I think for me, I'm having a cognitive disconnect right now, because I'm thinking, just when you gave me this, if I go through that journey with you, which is a journey people that look like me have taken in this country, and I'm completely disconnected, and then I have to sit for a standardized test. Now, I hear that during instruction, and that's why I'm trying to go piece by piece with this, that modifications are being made, like how we modify work if a student has a IEP, or we have intervention specialists do that. And I remember at our last instructional policy meeting, I was asking about ways that we can meet the needs of our English as a second language students, in the sense that, can they get an IEP or something where things are read to them, or it could be in their language? And then you clarify, because you reiterated right here today, like, they got to take it in English. This is how it has to be. It's challenging for me to wrap my head around that the data is accurate and good, because you could have a brilliant student from Vietnam that will be an honor student, and the test, if it's a comprehension test, it's not just testing me on English. Because if you said it in my language, I could academically run circles around. I get the content, but because of the language barrier and nothing's really happening to clearly translate this into my language to show, no, I can comprehend, I read, I'm actually brilliant, that then we're going to have this uptick in special educational services, because students will test below, and it may seem as though, this is another, let's not belabor this, but I think I want to follow up with someone to take me on this journey that I can more advocate, because I love what you do. Because I think the advocates and those who are in the weeds and certain things are so important for just people, the advocates, refugees, underrepresented populations, disenfranchised. I just don't see how this could give I understand standardized tests a snapshot, but when I'm talking about growth and really understanding, I become saddened when I sit in these meetings, just because if I'm a refugee and I'm really an honor student, like, I could be a surgeon on my way to Harvard Medical, but I'm underserved because, no, I don't understand the English and the tools. If you're going to help me, then help me. And I'm not just getting assessed on learning English. If it's content, I can understand content, and I can comprehend, and I can execute. It's the language barrier where the disconnect. So you're not really assessing my academics. You're assessing if I know English.
Right. We'll show you some of the data that we have in a little bit, and then we'll answer more questions. So ESL program is a federal mandate. In your folder, you're going to find the 10 mandates that every public school needs to follow in regards to the ESL program. So our job is to make sure that EL students, going back to what Mrs. Jackson said, can participate meaningfully and equally in educational programs. And the reason we don't translate our content for our kids is because our teachers do not speak that language. In a similar way, our English-speaking students receive all of the content in English, and they speak English, and the assessment is English and in English, and the teachers speak English. Our kids are not passing all the tests because it's another layer, which is the instruction. So if you're translating, for example, a biology book, if I'm taking biology and you provide it to me in my language, but I've never learned biology before, I can read the words, but I don't know what they mean. So we've offered translations for some of our kids on OST. That is an option, but it's not always beneficial to our kids, because when they get to the word perimeter in their language or area, they don't know what those words are. They can read it, but they don't know what it means and what they're asked to do. So then it becomes missing pieces in their comprehension. But if they, according to the state, if they are receiving instruction in the language, if they're learning algebra in English, they should take the assessment in English. Because when they get to the word function, at least they saw what it was when their teacher instructed it. So they can make that connection, because they won't know the word function in Vietnamese, because they never learned it in Vietnamese. So those are some of the language acquisition pieces based on research. So we're going to go into the 10 mandates. We're not going to go in specifically. So as the ESL program, we do identify kids. We provide, we screen them based on the OELPs, based on a home language survey. So we don't look at students and say, I think you're an ESL student. We actually have parents fill out a home language survey. All parents that enroll in Akron Public Schools fill out a home language survey. And based on that home language survey, we screen them for ESL if there's another language spoken at home or if there's another language spoken by the child. Then we provide, if they do qualify for ESL, we go into number 2 and provide language assistance at academic language, not social English. So we provide them with academic English at grade level. Number 3, staffing and supporting of an ESL program. The teachers have to be certified, and also with a TESOL on top of it as an endorsement. If we can't find a TESOL endorsed teachers, we do look for teachers who have a reading endorsement. Provide meaningful access to all curricular and extracurricular programs. That means that EL students are given the same opportunities as non-EL. So if we have a brand new student to the country who wants to participate in the IB program, absolutely. Just because you don't know the language does not mean you're going to be excluded from the IB program. A lot of support needs to be in place, but we can't exclude you due to language if you go back to the law, because that's a civil rights. We can't exclude students from sports or any extracurricular programs because of a language barrier. Number 5, avoiding unnecessary segregation of EL students. We want to make sure that EL students are not segregated, and that is also provided there. Number 6, evaluating EL students for special education and providing dual services. We have to make sure that students are not identified for special ed because of a language barrier. Going back to what was shared earlier, the child may be gifted, but because the child has a language barrier, we have to watch and make sure that when kids are looked at and data-wise, it's not being evaluated for special ed because it's not a learning disability. And so the state just does watch that in regards to that. And if they do have a learning disability, they get both services. They get ESL and they get intervention from the intervention specialists. Number 7 is meeting the needs of students. As a parent, they can opt out of the ESL program, but that child is still identified as an ESL program. And the only way we can exit them from that program is if they pass the OELPA and they show that they're proficient in English. If the parent says, I don't want them to be in the ESL program, they're refusing the services of an ESL teacher. That's what they're refusing. But we still have to monitor by law their data, and every year we ask them, well, would you like to participate in ESL this year? We send home a letter every day. And then for kids who've exited ESL, every year.
No, it's not that.
It's already every year. Yes.
Dr. Cave, excuse me. Yes. And you send the letter home in English?
Multiple languages.
Okay,
so we
so-
send it in English plus a copy of their language.
Excellent. That's what I wanted to be said for those at home.
Yes. And then number 8, for kids who've exited ESL, we have to monitor them for 2 years to make sure that we didn't exit them too early, and service as and when needed for 2 years based on data. Number 9, we get audited every year, and they evaluate the effectiveness of our district's EL program. And I will share that with you in a couple minutes, but I'm going to go to number 10 because we have to ensure meaningful communication with limited English proficient parents. And here's how we do it.
So we offer, we have 32 interpreter positions in the district to cover our top languages that we find here. We offer translations for those letters as well as many other communications in the district. We translate videos. Some of our families may not read in their language, so having a translated letter in their hand doesn't do anything. So some of those things that we can record in a video and provide to the families in an audio or video medium is another angle to help them receive the information. We offer interpreter services resources. Any parent is eligible to request an interpreter for like an IEP meeting or a parent conference. The disciplinary hearings that happen, interpreters are provided for that. So we want to make sure that our interpreters are available through those top means of communication with the parents, so that the parents are aware of what's going on and they are able to participate in their child's education as much as any other parent is. So to give you a breakdown of our demographics, we have 2,388 EL students. 2,200 of those are in APS. We also do service non-public. But the majority of those are Akron Public. That is spread across 46 APS buildings. So it's not just in North Cluster, despite probably historic mentalities. They're now all across. We have an ESL kid in every building. We have representation of 87 countries. That does include the U.S., and then 48 languages, including English. So we have a wide range. You can see here, we're showing some of our data and growth. 10.8% of APS students are EL. And just here from at that bottom line, you see the 20 of September of 2024 shows the number of identified EL students is 2162. That's up 110 from last year at this time. And you can see from the year before that, we grew quite a bit from September of 22 to September of 23. So our population is growing. We did exit 428 students from the ESL program, but those 428, we do still have a mandate to monitor, so it's not like they are off of our roster. We are still monitoring them and making sure that they are successful as they move forward, according to mandate number 8.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the funding. So ESL is a federal mandate that's underfunded. It's a required program that our district has to do. It has to come out of general fund. Our interpreters, our teachers has to come out of general fund. So we spent in the past year about $5 million to pay for the ESL program. Whatever is federally required needs to be paid out of general fund. Otherwise, we will be supplanting, and we're not allowed to supplant. So currently, we are scheduled to receive $2 million from the state, so you can see that we spend more than what we have received. There is a West Ed cost study, and I did link that cost study in the PowerPoint. At the OSBA, they also presented the West Ed cost study and showing how ESL is funded across the districts. You will find that the larger the district, the lower the funding money that the district will spend. And it's unequitable. And so I just put that in there. So a very small district with 4 students spends more on ESL than a very large district with about 2,000 students as we are speaking. So we do get extra funding. These are supplemental, meaning that it can't take the place of general fund. So we have Title III, and that helps pay for central office support because there's 46 buildings with ESL student. I'm paid out of general, just an idea, but all of my staff is all paid out of Title III and grants that I write to help because I have to be able to support my Buchtel, my Garfield, because it's very tough with secondary. When they come as a newcomer, and you experience it a little bit, but imagine as a high schooler coming in under the same graduation requirements. So I need support. I need support to mentor my tutors that a lot of them may be subs because it's hard to find certified teachers for ESL. So we provide professional development monthly. So that shows you a little bit of that piece, and not all of it can be used on personnel. And then here are the grants that I've written to help support that because we buy things, personal care for families, because you don't know how to use the washing machine. You don't know where to buy things. So I have refugee grants so that we buy resources, school supplies for the kids, professional development for parents, English classes for parents, whatever we are able to provide. So we take advantage of all the grants that are out there, and we've been declined a couple, but we have received a lot, and we're very thankful for that piece. Here's the highlights of the ESL program. Katie's going to talk about the translation piece.
So as we mentioned, we have interpreters that are available for parent meetings and to support enrollment. We have an interpreter request process that's a Google form that our staff have access to, and they submit requests all the time. Last year, in the non-North Cluster buildings, we had over 1,400 requests for phone calls, meetings, support for what nature. As of today, this is not including any North building, we've had up to almost 500 requests, and that's just August and September and the beginning of October. So that's non-North buildings. That's not including any internal North, Finley, Jennings, those sorts of buildings. We mentioned the translation of documents and videos. We did get a translation tablet that we've put out at several of our preschool buildings based on a preschool grant that we wrote. This is a Samsung tablet device that has a translation feature so people can press and talk, and it will translate on the other side into the language that they need, and then they can press and talk, and it'll translate back to English. So we've been implementing that in several of our buildings that have preschool, and that's called the ILA, the ILA there. We also do all calls in multiple languages so that our families, if they have marked that their language of communication is Spanish, they should be receiving an all call in Spanish so that they're not confused by what message is being relayed by the district. And then, as Dr. Wynn mentioned, we have been able to purchase supplies for some of our refugees, such as personal care, household items, things like that.
And the reason we don't include the North Cluster is because our wonderful 32 interpreters are scheduled in the North Cluster, and some of our Bookstore cluster, they have an influx of students to support over 2,000 EL students. But we have to keep in mind, although the kids have exited ESL, we have thousands more parents that still needs it. So we're very thankful. So we have to think outside of the box based on the funding that we are able to secure to make sure that all of our families across the district are supported. We also employ bilingual engagement specialists here at district level to help with enrollment. Everything when it comes to a language barrier takes twice the time. A secretary that enrolls, we need twice the time to work with an interpreter to enroll the same family. And instruction, teacher has to differentiate. So that's why we also will try to put as much support as we're able through grants. Bilingual family liaisons and refugee liaisons are also who we employ under some of these grants. Professional development, last year we provide over 40 professional development sessions just last year. Support for refugee students, supplies, everything that you see here. We work with SUMA to get car seats. We are both very active in the community. We try to be in a lot of committees in the community. I also work at the state level as the advisory on the state level so that we will be able to represent a large district and not just small districts that are represented. So our voice is also heard there. So here are some highlights. On our report card, we got 5 out of 5 under gap closing because we exceeded the state's target by 5% of English proficiency. And here's the results that you can look at. We have some kids that take the alternative OALPA, students who have great disability, where they take the alternative OALPA, and even with the alternative OALPA, we exited 4 students. With the other one, we've exited 239 students, but the red, it shows that they're emerging. Yellow is that they're progressing, and green means they're proficient. So in the past 9 years since I've been here, this is my 10th year, I've worn many different hats. With Akron Public, we've exited 1,700 kids from ESL saying, hey, they've acquired the language, they've exited, and we pulled our exited students, and they are doing very well on OST. So that's a lot of kids, considering we've exited in the past 9 years from the ESL program. Kudos to our wonderful teachers and all the support staff that supports our students and our families. So our graduation, district's 4-year graduation rate, our rate is higher than the state's EL students in regards to graduation. So I just wanted to highlight some of it. The work is not done, and it takes a lot of time, but we are in it because we believe in it. So that's our presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wan. Thank you. Say your name again. Katie, thank you guys so much. This is like one of the best presentations that I've seen since I've been on the board. One of the best. I've seen like a handful that I really, as an educator, I'm like, yes, yes. Yes, I really love, because you see that you guys are not just doing a job, but you have hard work into it. I like the connections with the grants. I like that you mentioned the grants, because if you watch board meetings, I'm always asking about, because you dig deeper when you're passionate and you try to find money to serve the population that you want to serve. And you're not just looking at general funds. You're not just like, oh, we don't have this. You go and make it happen. And this is why I really enjoyed this presentation, because that's the feeling that I'm getting from you guys, is that you are making this happen. I know it's a whole team of you all, so shout out to the team. But I love when correlations is being made where you're saying, yes, and because we need this, we look towards this grant. And yes, we were denied on a couple grants, but we continue to write grants, and these are the funds that we get. Here's the data. We've exited this amount of students. This is how our students are performing on OST. This is how it should read out, because you're answering every question before you have to be asked. So I just want to say thank you for this information. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And it's clear it's a lot of more work that needs to be done. And I have so many thoughts going through my head after you guys are presenting how this model could be taken to serve. We talk about equity and diversity, a population of students that may be American born, but they're still English as a second language. And there's still a disconnect with vocabulary. And so that's why they're underperforming as well. So kudos to you all. I'm so thankful for you and just really happy with this presentation, just as a community member and as a board member and as an educator. And shout out to all of the educators too that's making these things happen. This is a good day for me. I'm very pleased with this presentation.
So, like President Chair. So very good. I will totally agree with my colleague, everything that she said. Going around, because I do have the North Cluster, and going into the buildings and seeing some of the students, and especially like at North and Jennings, where they have kids that take you around, they make sure that you are getting a child from a different country to take you around. And the sense of belonging I get from being there with them, they're excited to be there. They'll take you all around North, show you all the different things. And that makes it very, very exciting. But one concern that I had with one of the students, he said that, and I know I said this before at a board meeting, that it would be nice if his friends could know his language. It would be nice if, they had some type of extracurricular activity where a student can learn Nepali if they want. And also at an elementary school, one of the principals said that would be amazing during lunchtime if we could just speak a different language to teach the English-speaking children the language of their peers. And I mean, if we can look into that, I think that would be amazing. I was jotting down some questions. I won't ask all of them, but I know that we do send a lot of information home to the parents in their language. But what about homework? So when these kids have homework, kindergartners, and they're learning about A is for apple, B is for ball, and it's in English, but they're going home to their language. Those parents are speaking the language that they know to their students. So how are we helping parents teach their kids at home? Like, it's easy for me to say, okay, well, my kid, I'm reading this. But as a parent from, let's just say Nepali, is trying to help their child with homework, what do we do?
So my parents, actually, I was one of the refugees that came in 1975 from Vietnam, and my parents had 12 children. And so I know exactly kind of like what that experience is like. I would tell you that a lot of our kids don't read in their language, and the language that they do speak is social. So as a parent, what we have tried, it's a struggle, because first of all, a lot of our parents are doing 3 jobs. We have offered English classes, we've offered videos and curriculum and how we can help them understand it. The ones that come always come, and the ones that can't, because like Katie shared, they have to pay back the flights, and then it's survival for them. So we work with outside agencies like Asia works with us and provide English clubs, homework club after school. We also offer, some of the, if any at the school, if they are willing to stay after school to work with kids, we always tell teachers that come talk to us. We have other opportunities. We would love that. But our issue is that piece, too, because our parents have to be willing to come to work with us. But we always offer it for them. They do work very well as a community. So the way my siblings did it, the older children help the younger children, because that's what they're able to do from being in school. But parents, even though my parents were not able to help me with the homework, they still say, go do your homework or check your homework. But at least at the building, we always encourage in the PD, when Katie goes out, for when the parents come as a refugee with the International Institute, quarterly she provides PD for parents. And that's during their required PD. So if they're not coming to us, we're coming to them. So we go out and join the International Institute where they have to attend mandatory PD for those first 90 days. So we jump in there and we tell them what school is like and we give out our contact information. If you need help with anything, call us. We always figure out a way. But that's the best that we can do, but because they're working,
right.
But we just want to know, hey, we're here. And the other thing is our interpreters are at the building. We can do clubs. We can have them teach the kids, at lunchtime because they're scheduled at the building as an option, just to get their interest in. I know at Bookto right now there's a wonderful soccer club that a teacher started because the boys from the Congo love soccer. So we were actually talking about that at the meeting, that we're thinking of ways to, support them and go cheer for them when they play, their games. But those are very good suggestions, Mrs. Hall.
Just one more thing. I appreciate you. You're the perfect person for this job because, like you said, you came over here as an immigrant. So you know firsthand. So never lose that. Never forget that struggle that you had now that you're in this position to help others. Because sometimes we tend to forget, where we came from. And we forget our struggles now that we've elevated. Never forget that because you're the biggest cheerleader for our students. So my second question is, that was just kind of like a comment. So second question is, we have substitute teachers, right?
Yes.
And they're not required to have a degree. So what about, and I know I said this before, some of our parents, they could be substitute teachers and work with the ESL program because they know that language. A lot of them speak English. So why not have some of those parents become substitute teachers? And we pay them. We're paying substitutes anyways, and a lot of them want to work part-time. So this is a perfect opportunity for us, like you said, step outside the box to get some of these parents that know these different languages. I think that would be a little more easy for a child to relate from somebody that knows their language and also teaching them English versus someone just teaching English, because I would be frustrated. I know when I took French and Spanish, and I'm sitting there like, what? I can only answer that way? I don't even know what that means. So, I think if we, like you said, step outside the box and look at some parents that come to the school all the time, that participate all the time, say, hey, would you like to be a substitute? And let's try to work them through the process of being substitutes, a paid substitute teacher, where then they're not going out working all these different jobs. They can work in the schools, they can help their child, and they can help other children in our community.
Yes, that's very true. A lot of our language interpreters are our parents.
Okay.
So that's, because they understand, and that's where a lot of our PD comes from. We talk to them. What are your needs? How can we help your community through the lens of a parent? So we love those suggestions.
But are they working in the school? Because I know when I've been in the school, I've only seen I never hear that they're a parent. They're just they're working there, or they're coming from a different country. One, she's at, I can't remember what school, Forest Hill. She's a doctor.
Yes, Dr. Eptisum.
But she's not accredited here in the States. So she's here being a
Yes.
tutor.
And that's the other piece, that a lot of our language interpreters, we had two that were physicians in their country. One is, and she's an OB/GYN, and then her husband is a psychiatrist. And now he's one of our TSS. So from that, we got him into becoming one of our TSS. Our kids have to see different people in different jobs so that they can also aspire to become successful.
Right.
And then we have an electrical engineer. We have a lot of professionals. So I always tell the building principals, our interpreters are highly qualified. They just can't work over here because of the licensure.
Right.
Thank you for that. And as we are nearing the end of the meeting, I think so I was hoping Summer went there because I know she asked him in a board meeting, and so I was glad that she circled back. That's why I looked at you and was about to text you, but you asked it anyway. And so another thing that I consider, because I know that there are some restrictions when we talk about them teaching English, right? But I know that they can't necessarily teach English even if, parents, but what I was thinking to support kind of along lines what Member Hall is saying is that paraprofessional. Because then they serving in the capacity like a teacher's aide, and they can assist within a classroom. And I know that they can do that, but I know they can't do the instruction because of how we're set up in the state, because of licensures, because of different legalities and contractual issues. But they can do the paraprofessional piece. And so I know that they were saying about 2 years ago, I know on the board they were talking about it was a shortage. But we have such a high influx of refugees coming into the city that I'm just curious to the point, like, how is it a shortage when we're having so many? What is the shortage from? Don't need to answer that now. But this is just a kind of consideration. So when we think out of the box, how we can best utilize them, paraprofessionals, and which ways works, which it seems like you guys are on the ball. And so to put these things out here from our observations when we go out as board members and what you guys are already working, because no one can negate your lived experience. It's never going to go. It's with you. It's your life, right? It's your lived experience, just like our experience will be our experiences. And so, again, I want to say thank you. I do greatly appreciate what you all are doing. And it's just really good work, and it's just about continuing to do the work, making sure that any gray areas or blind spots that you all share, because transparency is important, because as a board, we need to know how to support you, and we need to know barriers that may come up for you as a board and how we can best assist you with those barriers, and even with aiding the parents and the students as we move forward with this. So just please keep that in mind, because this is a great work that you're doing. And it can serve all our children. The framework can serve all our children, because we're talking about refugees, but I'm thinking about Black and brown children born on U.S. soil. And it's a disconnect the same way for those students. The test scores speak. And so we can duplicate and model some of the things and strategies that we're putting in place to serve when we talk about the equity piece that also can serve these kids, because a lot of it is dialect and not understanding vocabulary. And even though they're U.S. born. So that's where my mind is going as an educator, like, oh, yeah. But so thank you guys. Yes.
Thank you again, and I echo all the compliments on this presentation. Being a nurse at Akron Children's, I can relate to this so much. In my role as a telephone triage nurse, I work with interpreter services all the time. And so my question, one of them was around collaborating in any fashion with Akron Children's. We share a lot of the same students. I mean, we have a whole clinic that is mostly, sometimes I get those calls and I can't say I'm the board president, but I know who I'm speaking with. So wondering about that. And then my second question, you mentioned Buchtel often. How are these students dispersed outside of North and Buchtel? Is Buchtel one of the higher schools that are getting the influx?
So because the North Cluster is full, the International Institute has resettled a lot of students there. So the new place that they're resettling where housing is available is in the Buchtel Cluster and the East Cluster.
Okay.
Why not the Ellen Firestone cluster?
But where housing is available is what they've told us.
Affordable housing is available. I'm going to assume affordable might be part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any collaboration with Akron Children's at all?
So I'm in contact often with someone in patient care. I don't know what she's like a social worker at Akron Children's. She refers families to us, and she reaches out to me directly to request that we get in contact with families, like if there's a child who needs a SPED evaluation or things like that. So she's referred several families to me that are needing an interpreter support in order to get things started. And then we've also done, like Dr. Nguyen mentioned, the car seat drive through the injury prevention department, or I'm not exactly sure what it's considered, but yeah, through Akron Children's, we've done a car seat drive that's specifically aimed at refugees to make sure that our immigrant and refugee population have access to free car seats. So we have partnered with them in a couple of things.
Mobility
Yeah,
programming.
the Safe Mobility
Safe
Project.
Mobility Project. We work closely with them. They translate a lot of the cards on bike safety and things like that we've distributed. We're on the Refugee Health Task Force for Health. So during that meeting, any concerns, any issues, we share a lot through the city with all the agencies too. So we would love to continue to collaborate with Children's.
Did you have a question?
No, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So thank you, and I'm glad you all were able to receive the presentation today. I know that there were some questions even about the OST when we were doing our report card, and so this is a great follow-up to that, as well as just making sure that you as a board know how our population has been growing over the last couple years. And then Ms. Jackson said one thing about like needs from the board, and I just wanted to, it's not an ask right now, but just wanted to point out to you all that because it's a federal mandate, we never know how many students we're going to get. And so when it comes to budgeting, sometimes we can start off the school year with a certain number of teachers and tutors in ESL, and that could change in the next month. And so that one is really, really difficult, but we always advocate to meet the needs of our students and look for more people and say, yes, this was not budgeted, but it is required, and so that is one thing that has changed for us even over the last school year. Yes. And Dr. Nguyen's department has grown, and so she probably would like for it to grow some more in order to assist, but we are doing what we can. As you can see, they do great work.
Oh, yeah, and but I respect the work. You see, it's different when you're willing to do above and beyond. When you're researching grants, when you're speaking to the grants that you're writing for I just respect it because I'm that person. It's one thing when you spend other people's money and it's easy because you get a budget. It's another thing when you have to work to find the money for your programming to take care of your team because you are passionate about the work. I do this. I'm in private Christian education. Like, that's how we live, right? You have to write grants if you want these opportunities for your kids, even though people think they get all this money from the state. But, it's certain things that you have to do. So I just greatly, greatly, greatly respect that. And also the thing, too, when we get more children, we get more money. But we still have to offset that. Just like you saw the differential, it was like $3 million difference, $3 million difference from what we get from the state and what it actually takes. So when we get those children, even though it's good to always show, even if we have to do an ask to the board, that although we are getting this additional income because we have this influx of students, but this is the deficit. So we need to close this deficit. This is why we need the funds, and this deficit is going to cover these resources so that everyone sees the clear picture, like we're just not asking. And for you guys, for me, again, I just like that you're doing the gritty work. That you're not just saying, board or community, just give me this. You're saying, listen, meet us. We're working alongside you. We're taking not only the funds that was given to us from the states or any federal funds, but we are writing grants. We are building partnerships, and all that matters. That's above and beyond, and I just respect it, greatly respect it. Thank you.
I have one more question, Chair, before we leave. So, 6 minutes, okay. But behavior. So I understand our kids, when they're frustrated, well, all of them are our kids. I'm going to say English-speaking children that are from here. When they're frustrated or they're bored because they already know all the work that's being done, then they start to act out in class. Flip side, we have children coming from another country, frustrated because they don't understand what you're saying in English because they've never heard anyone speak to them in English. No telling what the borders was like coming, customs. They're, me at customs, I'm like, just tell me, just go that way, because I'm not questioning them. But how do we relate to the children that are coming over and you see the frustration in them and they're trying to learn, but they're just not getting it? And you have a teacher that's saying, no, you understand this. And then they just start screaming, act out. How do we reprimand those kids? Do we send them to the office, or do we take the time to understand where this child is coming from? Like, what are those layers?
I think it varies by building. I've had a lot of personal emails from teachers that would say, hey, I have this kid, here's the behavior. I think they're frustrated because of a language barrier. How can I help? And they put in an interpreter request. So we would send an interpreter out to check with the kids in their language. Well, why are you frustrated? Why are you crying? What's going on? We've also had weekly check-ins with counselors. So they would put in an interpreter, because they don't have interpreters. We don't have, there's 32 interpreters. That's all we have. So we would have weekly check-ins. So the counselor would put in an interpreter request and say, hey, I want to check on these 4 kids who are brand new to the country. I want to see how they're doing. And then an interpreter would either do it through a Google Meet or be in person and just talk to the kids. Well, are you getting your lessons? How are things going? What additional help do you need? And then also call home and tell the parents, your child had a good week. Here's what we need you to work on. We provide a lot of translations weekly that we do. It's a fluid document that all of our staff has access to. We have an ESL resource document for just principals, one just for secretaries, one just for EL teachers, and one for gen ed teachers. So we take the curriculum, because they have to get grade level curriculum, because that's what they're being tested on, and we scaffold, kind of like what I did. So we have, for example, a vocabulary auto-translate formula that we created on an Excel document. We saw it on YouTube. So what we did was the teachers can just type it in English. It'll translate into 10 languages. And then they can give it to the kids who need it. And if the kids can't read it, then an interpreter can help. But we're just trying our best to make sure they get that access to ensure that they are able to become successful.
I can give an example, a concrete example to that too. Last year we had a child who was brand new to the country that was Arabic speaking, who was in kindergarten, I believe. She had an older sibling in the same building. She'd never gone to school before, and she was behaviorally acting out, struggling a lot, really having a hard time, and was being very disruptive in the class. And so the principal was calling us, how do I help this child? Like, how do we walk through this? And we ended up setting it up that the interpreter would go out and see her once a week and talk to her. And half of her problem was just she'd never gone to school before. She didn't understand why she couldn't walk down the hall and see her older brother when she felt scared or needed to have a moment with him. And she didn't have anyone else in her class that spoke Arabic. So she was feeling very just confused and frustrated. And so, we worked together with the building principal, with the counselor. We had several phone calls just with the counselor alone to talk through what's going on with this child, why, or how can we best support her. And over the course of, I think it was a semester, that we were sending out the interpreter weekly just to check in on her. And over the course of that time, that child just needed somebody there to talk to her and explain what was going on and that you're okay, and that, this is all like just how to be a student in an American classroom. And she was thriving by the end of the year. So by the end of that semester, she really did well. So that was a concrete, literal example.
No, thank you for that. And by you having all of those resources to help that student, it concerns me that all of our other students don't get those same type of resources, that are just acting out because of something. They're new to school. But we don't go that extra mile for all those other kids. So that concern, I just see all of our children being successful if we just go that extra mile for all of them. So thank you for that.
Thank you. The time is 5:29, and I concur with everything that's been said, and it's resources. And as Dr. Wan said, it varies from building to building, so you can never anticipate. It depends on the counselor, the principal, the teachers, who's making the referral. And again, just like I see you guys' presentation, it's passionate. Well, it's not everyone that does the work, may not be you. and I may not have this same type of kudos and congratulations, right? Because I'm going to call whatever. I don't want to use the proper word. Like, yeah, no, I don't believe it. But anyway, so Dr. Caver.
Yeah, so thank you so much for a great discussion, and I'll just remind the committee that there are teaching and learning updates in the board agenda that you can take a look at. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you all who logged in to watch us on today. This does conclude our instructional policy meeting for today, Monday, October the 14th. Blessings.